My name's Anthony Russell, and I'm here to talk about critical communications and delivering those as a service in the cloud, which is what Whispir does, and our journey to the cloud. I'm going to start, though, with a very simple question. Does anyone know what a mammal is? Any hands at all? It's always hard with the technical crowd. Now, there's a couple of old-timers at the back. So, mammal means middle-aged men in lycra, and I must admit, I am a mammal. I love cycling. I love watching cycling. The grace of cycling coupled with the colour, the endurance, the speed, the mental and physical suffering, I find amazing. I think it is simply amazing to watch cycling. But one of the really interesting things about cycling is that communication plays an extremely key part in the sport of cycling. Cyclists communicate between other riders, teammates, team managers on a constant basis. And without communications, you occasionally see some jaw-dropping accidents and crashes due to a failure of those teams to communicate, be it at a sprint at the end, be it an issue on the road. Communication plays an immensely key part of communicating within the cycling arena. But when communication works, it is a beautiful sport to watch. It is truly one of the most captivating things that you can see on TV, in my own personal opinion. Now, just like in sport, communication is extremely key in the enterprise, in business, in startups. And I'm going to talk through that. I'm going to talk through a large number of enterprise and startup companies that are using a communication service to help differentiate their business and to reduce the workload that their staff has, that their teams have, and how they can be more effective in the way that they engage their customers. So a couple of examples very quickly. Every time you receive an email from your bank or an SMS that your train's delayed, or potentially some promotion from one of your retail shops that you're a frequent buyer from, you're having a conversation with that organisation, and that organisation is having a conversation with you. And that is very important for us as consumers, for us as staff, for us as partners of organisations, to ensure that we're communicating on a regular basis. Now, some of those communications are good, and this is an example of an American Airlines flight delay and how they were effective in their communication with their end users, and in doing so, their end users were globally tweeting about it. Sometimes those communications are not so good, such as this example of another airline and the significant feedback that their users communicated back to the wider audience, the wider public, and sometimes they're absolutely terrible, and they're pulled from the internet extremely quickly. However, due to the digital connected nature that we all live in, that we all love to be interfaced with, these spread around the world extremely quickly. So if I start, ineffective communications are really based off a lack of a communication plan, the ability to not utilise contextually relevant data or personalised data, utilising the wrong channel to communicate, the wrong time to communicate. So these are problems that on a daily basis enterprises and born-in-the-cloud startups are facing, is how do I effectively communicate? How do I manage all of the channels that I need to with the extreme expansion and explosion of communication channels that we use, be it WeChat, WhatsApp, SMS, email, IVR, voice-based systems. It's very hard to communicate effectively. So let me start by a couple of examples of effective communications. And what you see up on the screen here is actually a photo of the polar vortex that hit the northeast coast of the US earlier this year. And this is Boston Airport. 200 flights were cancelled within a matter of hours. Thousands of people were stranded. And so the example that I want to give you is really posing the question, which is, what does an insurance company that delivers travel policies do next? Those travel policies are extremely small in relation to their margin. And if they utilise, that travel company utilises, the insurance company utilises a human-based communication strategy, they very, very quickly reduce the margin on that policy to zero. If I'm having people in call centres calling those thousands of people and trying to communicate effectively very basic messages with them, I've got a problem. So we'll take an example here of an insurance company in the US. So in this case, a SMS goes out to the user, hey, we've noticed that you've been affected by the travel delays in Boston. Click this link to review your policy. Now, at this point, this is not a standard communication out to every single user. This is a communication to me, the individual who's having that problem. So in this case, we're going to pivot from the channel, which is SMS, 160 characters SMS, to a rich message, or what we call a rich message, which is a mobile responsive HTML5 web page unique to that user. In this case, I can see that you've been delayed. If you want to read through your policy, you can. I can scan through and have a look at my policy in detail, or I can click the claim button, and in clicking that claim button, the funds which are available to me as a policyholder will be transferred into my selected account. So we'll click this button. The claim's been executed. There's been no human being involved in that communication, but it's been extremely personalised, and I now have the funds to be able to maintain some level of decency as I wait for my next flight. But let's take it one step further. The insurance company knows that within my policy, I've got the ability to have 1 night or 2 nights stay at a hotel within that city. Now, they can then provide those hotel details through to me as an end user. I have the ability to review and select 1 or 2 of those hotels and to be able to have those ones allocated to me. So within a couple of clicks of a button, I'm able to have a room scheduled for me to manage my delay and to reduce my discomfort and the need for me to call a call centre in a very short period of time. Finally, we move on to, hey, we know where you are. We know that you're at the airport. Would you like us to send a car to pick you up at a discounted rate? It's not a part of your policy, but as a good insurance company, we would like to give you a discounted rate to take you from the airport to the hotel. What you see is extremely fast and effective and valuable communications happening at this point. But in addition to that, there's something that's very interesting that's happening to this insurance company. First, they're able to significantly reduce their costs and their time to engagement. The ability for them to utilise an SMS as a starting mechanism allows them to, for cents, start a conversation with that end user. They aren't needing to pay for buildings to manage their expanded contact centre. They're not needing to pay staff to do a very basic task, which is start a relatively remedial conversation. They're able to reduce those costs. They're also able to reduce those costs even further by putting the selection of the hotels in the example that I gave you on their terms. So they're able to refine down a list of hotels and say you have the ability to utilise one or many of these hotels in your pursuit of managing your delay. And so really, if you didn't have that ability, you would have the issue afterwards of saying, well, was that hotel within or outside of my policy? Was I able to stay at the hotel? Was I able to book the presidential suite at that hotel that night? In this case, you're able to manage the channel and manage the scope of the hotel selected. Finally, they're able to look at, second last, they're able to look at new revenue streams. The ability for them to promote hotels, promote car companies, allows them to generate new revenue streams in pursuit of a broader a satisfactory customer outcome. And finally, the experience allows them to go viral. This kind of engagement is something that significantly is promoted by the individual once the problem's been resolved. I, as an individual, if I had this kind of a service being offered to me, would be telling friends, telling business associates of the compelling nature of that communication experience that had just taken place. So you are able to see some significant changes to the way that insurance companies today engage and deliver services through to their end users. So, in summary here, effective communications is all around ensuring that you're able to drive value for you, for your customers, and for your partners. You can reduce costs, you can drive new revenue streams, and without a doubt, you can increase your customer satisfaction. And that's just one of several of the examples that I can talk about now, or afterwards we can talk about out around the booth area. Now, let me move on and introduce Whispir to you. So, as BJ mentioned before, I'm the director of the Whispir IO business, which is primarily focused around driving a set of key tenets for our customers. And that's really around ensuring the appropriate communication goes to the right people at the right time on the appropriate communication channel, and that we're able to report on it. And that's very important, that last point. Now, we deliver that as a service. Now, this service can be used in many scenarios, from emergency services response, there's a fire running through a valley, all the way through to a retail experience of there is a cost reduction, a price reduction in your favourite suit. We're able to ensure that the right message gets to the right people in the right period of time on the right channel. Now, we do this at a global level, and we do it for some of the largest banks, financial institutions, insurance companies, government organisations around the world. And what they use us for is they use us to ensure that they do not need to manage these endpoints. So what you see here are the communication endpoints that Whispir delivers our customers around the world, be it SMS, IVR, email, social media connections, rich message, instant message. We provide them the ability to have a single platform to utilise to communicate out to their users, customers, or third parties. Now, they then utilise a set of forms, events, or reminders and a rich, complex rules-based engines to allow them to have far more effective control of when and where a communication goes out. And then finally, once that communication is triggered, either via a human utilising our SaaS-based, our web-based portal, or via deep integration via our REST-based API, we utilise a very rich contact management solution to determine what is the appropriate channel to use for that individual, and how do I send it out, and when do I send it out. And then finally, as I mentioned before in the last slide, the reporting and analytics is very key. Wanting to ensure that we can audit the communication process is extremely critical. And I would say for a lot of the people in the audience, especially IT managers, is how do you report on once an issue was found within a server, a data center, or some other IT infrastructure, that someone was notified, that they confirmed their response, that they were on site and they were delivering support to that. That auditability is extremely key. So I'm not going to run through a demonstration. Alex did a great demonstration that worked very well. I think that it's probably best just to give you a very quick snapshot of what our customers do. Firstly, our customers will select a set of contacts. They'll create contacts either via a web-based portal, or they'll communicate that via some integrated API connection. They will then craft the message across multiple channels. Email, as you can see here, rich message, which is the HTML5 mobile responsive solution, and a web-based offering that they've selected here. They craft the message template that they want to send out. They then review the execution of that. This is an example of the work that we're doing with one of our key partners in the US, Twilio. They review the message type that's going to be delivered. And then finally, once they trigger that conversation, they're able to report in real time, as you can see here with the green bars, the delivery of those messages, the response of those messages, and they're able to action further engagements with their customer. So what you see is very, very rich, very, very effective, but very simple communication services that are being delivered to a large group of customers around the region. Now, in addition to what you saw there from the human-machine interface, is our customers have asked us for far deeper integration. They want to be able to integrate our communication service into their core enterprise system. So we started by exposing our REST-based API, or a set of APIs, our REST and SOAP-based APIs. We've extended that recently to provide a set of SDKs, and on the left-hand side you can see the SDKs that we have available now, and on the right a broader set of SDKs that are currently under development. And then finally, and probably most important, I think, for a lot of people in the room here, we've been asked to provide plugins for key enterprise SaaS solutions. So ServiceNow, Azuqua, and Zapier are already out. A lot of the Atlassian ones, HipChat, JSD, Jira for Service Desk, are on their way right at the moment, and there's a far longer list that sits behind it. What you see here is enterprises that want to have a very rich and diverse way to integrate their core systems with some level of dialogue with their internal staff, customers, or partners. So, You've probably never heard of Whispir, but you've probably used us in some interaction in the past 2 to 3 years if you live in Singapore. We deliver services to nearly every single industry that's imaginable, for the one reason that every single industry needs to have an effective way to communicate. So be it local, state, federal government, mining, utilities, health, emergency services, transport and logistics, financial services, we're delivering the last mile communication for a large number of these organisations who don't want to manage the complexity of communicating themselves. Now, they utilise us primarily in 3 different areas of their business. We started in the business resilience space. How do I ensure that the most effective communication goes out to the right stakeholder in time of duress? Let's think about a hostage situation in a bank. Let's think about a fire in a rural town right near a mining centre. We deliver effective communications for business resilience. Operational communications, which I would imagine the large majority of people who are sitting in the audience today, how do I reduce the risk of failed communications within my IT staff? How do I ensure that I'm effectively communicating both with my internal staff and my key stakeholders when there are IT problems? And finally, customer engagement. How do I ensure that large organisations are communicating effectively with their end users? How do I ensure that born in the cloud companies are communicating effectively with their end users? Just as a sample of some of the enterprise customers, if I look across the Asia-Pacific area that utilise Whispir today, it is truly a who's who of large enterprise organisations within the industry segment. So be it IBM, be it Telstra, be it Westpac, UOB, Australia Post, Singapore Post, Coca-Cola, McDonald's, they all in some way, shape or form are utilising the Whispir solution to be more effective in the way that they communicate. Very quickly, I'm going to touch on a couple of use cases to give you a little bit more of an insight of what these companies are doing. And I'm going to start with Caltex. So Caltex is a very large petrochemical company. They're in about 60 Asian countries to date, and they deliver a wide range of service areas from managing refineries through to distribution networks, all the way through to retail stores as well for the delivery and servicing of petrol. Now, they had a challenge. They wanted to ensure that they could communicate over more channels than simply SMS. They wanted to ensure that they had a reliable platform that was up 24/7, and they wanted to ensure that they had the ability to be effective in times of significant duress when there are emergencies within their organisation. And in moving to the Whispir platform over a 12-month period, one thing that we found very interesting with Caltex was they turned around and said, hey, we've been able to reposition a lot of our IT staff that used to manage IT infrastructure for communications to be doing other work. They're able to have a platform which is now up 24/7, is able to give them a very broad set of communication endpoints, IVR, conference calling, in addition to the basic SMS communications. And if we have a very quick look at what they do, what you see here is within the Caltex flow, they will configure the audience that they want to engage within the platform. They will craft a message, they will send the message, and if the user does not respond, they will escalate appropriately to the next person within their critical supply chain. And finally, they're able to report on that. And so from an auditability point of view, they're able to know who knew what when and who confirmed their ability to act. Very important within a very large, complex business such as Caltex. Changi Airport Group. I love Changi. I've been living in Singapore for about 5 years, and I think an airport that can manage 55 million passengers a year and do it as efficiently and beautifully as Changi is something to really behold. I think it is an absolutely fantastic place. And Changi Airport Group wanted to ensure that they could be more efficient. Like everything that Changi does, they wanted to be more efficient in the way that they communicated with their customers. But in our case, they want to be more efficient in the way in which they communicate with their operational staff. So utilising the Whispir platform, Changi have found that they're able to respond quicker to a larger array of situations and communicate more effectively with their internal operations staff. Finally, Singapore Post. The reason I put this example up is Singapore Post is extremely similar to a lot of the logistics and distribution companies around the world. Singapore Post have a challenge, which is they want to increase their deliverable rate of packages. And to do so, they need to be more effective in the way in which they communicate with their end users. So by utilising the Whispir platform, and I'll show you the process in a minute, they've found a 40% gain in their deliverable rate. Now that is impressive, because if you think of the cost of an undelivered package, A, you've already paid someone to go and deliver that package. B, you've got to take that package back. C, you've got to store that package. D, you have to then contact that user, either via a human being or via some automated process, and then you need to go and redeliver it at a later stage. How do you effectively communicate with that user at the outset of the delivery process to ensure that they're there? So if we have a quick look here, when SingPost send out a notification to their end user, there's all the contextually relevant data about the delivery that's going to be made. They then pivot very quickly into a rich message, as I mentioned before, and that allows you to reselect a different time, a different date, and provide instructions for delivery of that message, delivery of that package. Now, in doing so, that package then does not need to be picked up that day and delivered. It can remain on premise, or it can be delivered to a different location very quickly and effectively. And finally, we're able to integrate all of that communication that just occurred back into SingPost systems. So fast, effective, and extremely efficient communications helping increase their deliverable rate. So they're just some of the examples of large enterprise customers that we deliver today. And what I thought would be key for my last 10 minutes is to talk about this very critical business that we run as a service, and we've run as a service since 2002, why we're moving to the cloud and why we're moving to AWS. And I think a lot of these points have actually been touched on in the last two presentations, but this really gives you a snapshot of a real-life organisation doing this today for our business. So a couple of the key things that we wanted to ensure was, as our business is growing so quickly around the world, we needed to ensure that we could have a business that scaled effectively for us. Now, we are by no means a Netflix. By no means are we a Netflix or a Dropbox or a Spotify. But we have our lofty goals that are we're going to be at some point in the future. And we want to ensure that we have a platform that can manage those lofty goals of ours. We want to ensure that we can have a partner that will allow us to deliver globally. As our business expands, they will expand along with us. And we also, in areas where we need to be very specific, so that's primarily financial services and public sector, and have data in country, we want to ensure that we've got a very large base there, and we want a partner that can deliver alongside us. And that's something that Amazon Web Services does deliver. But finally, I don't deny this is probably one of the biggest pain points I've had, which is we are absolutely sick and tired of getting on planes with infrastructure. And it's a little bit over 12 months now since the last time when I had a guy with networking infrastructure getting on a plane to New Zealand, because our New Zealand-based data center provider failed in a very large lead time to deliver the hardware we needed. We simply don't want to have that discussion anymore. We want to ensure that the infrastructure's there when we need it to effectively grow our business. So a bit of a view on the transformation and what we've done here, because there are a lot of lessons that we've learned in moving our business to the cloud and to AWS. First, we started by building out our new service areas. So I mentioned before our integration layer, our API. We built that out first on AWS. It was greenfields. We didn't have an API. Everything was initially done via web page and via human interaction. We built out our API first, and we learned a lot by doing that on AWS and on the cloud. We then saw that we had capacity issues in Singapore. We had a very large financial services customer who wanted a significant set of workloads to run on us, and we simply didn't have the capacity in our existing managed data center environment to do it. We could have bought more infrastructure easily, but we needed to deliver it very quickly. As we've found, the Singapore market wants things as soon as they make a decision, they want it yesterday, and we needed to deliver very quickly. So what we did, and this is something that Alex mentioned and the Rackspace presenter before mentioned, which is we lifted and shifted our existing infrastructure to the cloud. So as opposed to our greenfields work that we've done with our API, we lifted and shifted our entire platform to the cloud and configured it and set it up for that one user. Now, to be honest, we were extremely bloated. It was an extremely large delivery, and we're working on that now, and I'll talk about that in a minute, but we lifted and shifted and we got it up and running very quickly. We then looked at new markets. We then moved into the US, and by default, we started on AWS. There was no need for us to even consider managing and running our own data centers. And in addition to that, within the Asian market, we own a lot of our communication channels. We own connections to Singtel. We own connections to Telstra, to Optus, to StarHub. What we wanted to do in the US is we wanted to ensure that we were building a business very quickly and effectively. So we built out our infrastructure on AWS, and we built out a significant partnership with Twilio in the US. So we don't even need to own the connections. We believe that it's better for us just to deliver the application intelligence that sits on top of that. So we learn a lot from that, and that's really where we are today. We've got a hybrid architecture right now. We've got managed data centers. We have contracts to run our solutions in managed data centers, and we have infrastructure that sits on AWS. And in addition to that, as I also mentioned, we have a very bloated environment that sits on AWS because it's far larger than what we needed, because we lifted and shifted. Now what we're doing is we're re-architecting that. We're going back and we're refining the solution that we have in place right now. And we're also then moving up the stack and using more cloud infrastructure services. So that's the process that we've gone through. But just as important is the process that our customers have gone through. We're a business that's been delivering critical communication services to large enterprises since 2002. We have a large number of contracts that tie us into data centers, that tie us into floors on data centers for certain customers, government customers, insurance companies, banking companies. Now, what we've done with our customers is first, all new customers by default go to the cloud. Every new customer goes to the cloud. They can select which region they want to have their solution, their platform enabled on, but they go to the cloud. Second, we're going back and reviewing every single one of our contracts, and those contracts that we know we can move today, we're starting to slowly migrate them across to our cloud infrastructure. And for those customers that are on contracts that are very fixed, we're leaving them on our managed services infrastructure. And what we're doing is, as we're moving the customers that can move, we're freeing up more space. So that infrastructure then becomes more relevant for a longer period of time until we can renegotiate those contracts. And in certain points, to be fair, we may not be able to renegotiate those contracts. There are some very significant government organisations and financial requirements that may mandate for the next year or 2 years that we simply can't move those customers. And that's all fine, but as soon as we can, the solutions will move across so we can be far more effective in what we do as we scale. From a learnings point of view, there's a couple of key things that we learned. First, and this is obvious, and I'd imagine most of you already know it, we had to retool. There were new skills that we needed to learn. So in the retooling, the education was key. Utilising the Amazon face-to-face courses and several online training organisations, we've been able to rapidly enhance a group of IT professionals' education awareness around cloud. I mentioned we have already lifted and shifted and we're refining our infrastructure, and we've also learnt that some customers there are exceptions that we simply know we can't move them to date to the cloud. In regards to the results, though, that I think are just as important, we are now far more agile in relation to our global expansion. We're able to set up regions, our US region, in a matter of days, as opposed to really a matter of multiple months. We're able to lower our global expansion costs, and this talks very well to our regional expansion. When we're looking at, say, India, a new market for us where we see significant benefit, both in our traditional business environment, banking and finance and government, as well as many other industries, we need to ensure we've got infrastructure locally in India. So Amazon's growth and movement to India is very key for us as we move forward. I think what's the most important, though, is, and this is a really key point for us, is our guys are now focused on how to build out our application, how to build out features, how to build out new connectors, and we are not worrying about the gear that does sit underneath the hood. And that, I know you've heard that message many times, but this is absolutely key to us, and this is something that we're going through right now. We're able to be more efficient with our own staff, and that's something that I'm loving to see. And I do feel that our customers are better off. They're getting our guys focused on developing feature sets and providing a more resilient solution, as opposed to managing backup routines for our data sets. So if I look at the future, Whispir was birthed in Australia. Our vision, though, and our view of the market is we are focused on Asia and beyond. So we want to ensure we've got a partner that grows with us as we grow. We love the fact that there are new regions that are coming with Amazon. We love the fact that we can ensure that our strategy for delivering of our business as we grow is aligned with a significant cloud vendor such as Amazon. We're ensuring that we're focusing, as I mentioned, on building out plugins for some of the largest enterprise SaaS solutions that are there, and we're ensuring that our team are focusing on enhancing our development capabilities to remove more of the underlying infrastructure that we currently manage. Queuing systems, clustered file systems, we don't want anything to do with. The ability for us to utilize a partner like Amazon Web Services allows us to remove the need for our teams to manage that. We're focused on building out more mobile endpoints because, as we all know, our mobile obsession is growing so large that we need to ensure that we're focused on delivering more mobile endpoints for greater communications within our customer base. And finally, we are simply focusing on our feature set, as I mentioned in the last slide. We need to ensure that we're growing out the features that our customers want within that communication platform. So in summary, just like I think it is in cycling, where cyclists do use communication to be more efficient, and that makes their jobs seem a lot easier. The reality is Whispir wants to do that from a IT communication point of view. We want to ensure that customers can use our platform to ensure that they're delivering greater solutions and it's far easier for them. We feel that the need for our customers to be more effective in their communications is something that drives everything that we do. We want to ensure that our customers get the right message to the right person in the appropriate period of time, and we're myopically focused on delivering that. And I feel working with Amazon has allowed us to ensure that that's where our focus remains as we grow globally around the world.